My hands were shaking as I held the check. The zeros blurred together through the moisture gathering in my eyes. 63 years old, and I'd never seen this much money in one place. $2.8 million. The sale of Thompson Industrial Supply had finally closed after 18 months of negotiations. The business my father started in 1967, the company I'd poured 40 years of my life into, was now owned by a massive conglomerate out of Toronto. And I was holding a check that represented every early morning, every missed hockey game, every sacrifice. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and pulled up my wife's contact. Margaret, my Maggie. 41 years we'd been married. She'd been there through it all. The lean years when we ate craft dinner 3 nights a week. The expansion in '89 that nearly bankrupted us. The slow, steady climb to success. She deserved this moment as much as I did. The phone rang twice before going to voicemail. That was odd. It was Thursday afternoon, just past 3. Margaret always answered on Thursdays because her book club ended at 2:30. I tried again. Voicemail. My heart hammered in my chest. Not from worry, but from pure excitement that I couldn't contain. I had to see her face when I told her. Had to watch her eyes light up the way they did when I surprised her with that trip to Prince Edward Island for our 30th anniversary. This was bigger than any anniversary. This was our golden ticket. We could finally take that Mediterranean cruise she'd been dropping hints about for years. We could help our daughter Sarah with the down payment on a house in Vancouver's insane market. We could spoil our grandkids rotten. I forwarded the bank notification email to Margaret's address with the subject line, "We did it, Mags," and a string of celebration emojis that probably made me look ridiculous for a man my age, but I didn't care. Then I told my assistant I was leaving early, grabbed my coat, and practically jogged to the parkade. The drive from the office in Calgary's downtown core to our house in Mount Royal usually took 20 minutes, but I made it in 14. The spring sunshine was brilliant, reflecting off the Bow River as I crossed the bridge. Everything looked sharper, more vibrant. The mountains in the distance seemed closer. Even the construction traffic on 10th Street couldn't dampen my mood. Our house came into view, the renovated 1922nd Tudor that we'd bought as a wreck in 1991 and slowly brought back to life. Margaret's silver Lexus was in the driveway, which confirmed she was home. I parked on the street, wanting to bound up the front steps like a teenager instead of a man with a creaky right knee and reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. I pushed open the front door, already calling out, "Maggie! Mags, you home?" Silence. But not complete silence. I heard something from upstairs. Voices. The sound was muffled, coming from her office on the 2nd floor. She must be on a call. Margaret had been doing more real estate work lately, taking on higher-end properties in Mount Royal and Elbow Park. Said it kept her mind sharp. I'd been proud of her for that, for not just settling into idle retirement while I wound down the business. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my knee protesting. The door to her office was closed, which was unusual. Margaret liked to work with the door open, said it made her feel less isolated. That's when I heard it clearly. Her voice, but different, softer, almost girlish. I froze on the landing, my hand on the banister. "David, sweetheart, I told you. He signed the papers yesterday. The money should hit his account today or tomorrow." A pause. No, he has no idea. He still thinks I'm just his devoted little wife who couldn't possibly understand complex finances. My breath caught. I pressed myself against the wall, out of sight of the office door, which was open just a crack. Margaret laughed. It wasn't her real laugh, the snorting, joyful sound she made when something genuinely amused her. This was performative, flirtatious. "Darling, I've been preparing for 2 years. Every document is ready. The offshore accounts Thomas set up are untouchable. By the time Robert realizes what's happening, I'll be in the Cayman Islands, and you'll have your divorce finalized." Another pause. Yes, I know your wife is being difficult about the prenup, but that's why we're waiting until Robert's money clears. Once we have access to his share, we'll have more than enough to make her go away quietly. Robert, she was talking about me. My share. The money from my life's work. I've already moved $800,000 from our joint investments over the past 6 months. He never checks the statements. I just tell him the market's been volatile, and he nods along like a good little boy. Her voice dripped with contempt. Contempt for me. The life insurance policies are all current. Though honestly, David, at his age and with his blood pressure, we might not have to wait too long for natural causes to do the work for us. The floor seemed to tilt. I grabbed the banister harder, my knuckles white. The check in my jacket pocket suddenly felt like it was burning through the fabric. $2.8 million from the business sale, plus another $1 million in investments and the house, which is worth at least 1.6. We're looking at nearly 6 million Canadian, darling. More than enough for that villa in Grand Cayman and the boat you wanted. She giggled. Actually giggled. I know. You're terrible, but that's why I love you. You see me as more than just some retired businessman's boring wife. The voices continued, but my brain had stopped processing words. It was replaying 41 years in fast forward. The way she'd been so supportive when I said I wanted to sell the company. Her sudden interest in organizing our finances last year. The new laptop she'd bought, saying she needed it for real estate work. The weekend trips to Toronto she'd taken, supposedly for advanced training courses. Her sister Linda in Toronto, who Margaret claimed to visit monthly. How long had she been planning this? 2 years, she'd said. While I was negotiating the sale, dreaming about our future together, she was plotting to rob me blind and disappear with some man named David. I needed to move. Needed to get out before she realized I was here. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out carefully, hands still shaking, but now from rage instead of excitement. I opened the voice memo app and hit record, then crept closer to the door. Thomas says the timing is perfect. Once the money's in the joint account, I'll transfer my authorized amount to the secondary account we set up, then immediately move it offshore. It'll look like a legitimate investment. By the time Robert's lawyer traces anything, the Cayman banking laws will have us protected. Margaret's voice was businesslike now, methodical. The beauty of it is, I'm entitled to half in a divorce anyway. This way, I just get to keep all of it. What about the daughter? A man's voice, tinny through the phone speaker. David. Sarah? Margaret laughed coldly. She'll side with her father at first, obviously. But she's practical. Once she sees I have the money, she'll come around. I'm her mother. And I'll be the one who can afford to help with that Vancouver down payment she's always whining about. Something broke inside me, hearing her weaponize our daughter like that. Sarah, who called her mother every Sunday, without fail. Sarah, who'd organized Margaret's 60th birthday party and invited 50 people. Sarah, who still came home for Sunday dinners with her husband and our 2 grandchildren. I need to go, Margaret said suddenly. I thought I heard something. Call you tonight from the burner phone. Same time. Love you, darling. I barely made it to the master bedroom before I heard her office door open. I closed our bedroom door quietly and stood there, phone still recording, listening to her footsteps on the stairs. The front door opened and closed. Through the window, I watched her get into her Lexus and pull away, probably heading to the grocery store like it was any other Thursday afternoon. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we'd shared for 4 decades, and listened to the recording 3 times. Her voice, so familiar yet so alien, plotting to destroy me, planning to steal everything I'd worked for, joking about waiting for me to die. The check was still in my pocket. Margaret had sent me that cheerful email this morning. Have a great day, honey. Don't work too hard. Love you. While simultaneously telling her boyfriend that the money should hit my account today or tomorrow. She'd been tracking the sale closure as carefully as I had, but for entirely different reasons. I looked around our bedroom, the framed photos on the dresser. Our wedding day, both of us impossibly young. Sarah's graduation, the grandkids. Vacations to Banff, to the Maritimes, to Europe. Was any of it real? Had she ever loved me? Or had I been nothing more than a meal ticket? A business prospect that took 40 years to mature? My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret, running to Sunterra for dinner ingredients. Home by 5. Love you. Love you. The words made me physically ill. I needed to think. Needed to plan. She had a 2-year head start, but I had something she didn't know about yet. I had the recording, and I had the money she was waiting for, money that was still in my name only because the check hadn't been deposited yet. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint investment account. She was right. I hadn't checked it in months. I trusted her. What a fool I'd been. The account that should have had nearly 1.2 million in it showed 743,000. She'd drained over 450,000, and I'd never noticed. I clicked through the transaction history. Transfers to an account I didn't recognize, listed as Portfolio Diversification, ML Investments. Monthly withdrawals of 15 to 30,000, starting 8 months ago. Before that, larger transfers. 50,000 here, 75,000 there. My hands were steady now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something cold and calculating. I'd built a successful business by being patient, by gathering information, by planning carefully. I could do this. I called my lawyer. Raymond Chen had been handling our business affairs for 20 years. He answered on the second ring. "Robert, congratulations on the sale. The check arrived?" "It did, Ray. Listen, I need to ask you something confidential. Hypothetically, if someone wanted to hide assets during a divorce, how would they do it?" There was a pause. That's an oddly specific hypothetical question for a man who just closed the biggest deal of his life. "Is everything okay?" "Hypothetically, Ray." Another pause. "Well, hypothetically, there are several methods. Offshore accounts, shell companies, transferring assets to family members, purchasing items that can be easily liquidated later." "Why? If someone had been doing this for, say, 2 years, and you had proof of it, what would that mean in a divorce proceeding?" "Robert," Ray's voice changed, became sharper. "If you have evidence of asset concealment or fraud, that changes everything. The courts don't look kindly on financial deception. The spouse attempting to hide assets could lose their claim to marital property entirely. We're talking potential criminal charges depending on the amounts involved. But I need to know what's really going on here. I'll call you back tomorrow. I need to gather some information first." I hung up before he could argue. Then I opened my email and created a new folder labeled Business Taxes, 2024. Something boring that Margaret would never bother opening, even if she snooped. I forwarded the voice recording to my email address and saved it in the folder. Then I took screenshots of every transaction in our joint investment account and emailed those to myself as well. My phone buzzed again. "Margaret, should I pick up that nice ribeye you like? We could grill out if it's warm enough." The audacity of it. Planning to steal millions from me while asking about steak preferences. I typed back, "Sounds great. Can't wait to see you." My daughter called as I was downloading our bank statements. "Dad, Mom texted me about the sale going through." "Congratulations. This is amazing." Sarah's voice, so genuinely happy, made my chest tight. I couldn't tell her yet, not until I knew everything. "Thanks, sweetheart. It's been a long time coming. Are you guys going to travel now?" Mom's been showing me pictures of Mediterranean cruises. Of course she had, probably pricing them with David's name on the second ticket. "We'll see. How are my grandkids?" I let Sarah talk about Emma's soccer games and Jacob's struggles with grade 3 math, letting her voice wash over me. Normal. This was normal. My daughter loved me, loved her mother, had no idea that her family was about to implode. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of our bedroom and made a list. I'd always been a list maker. It's how I organized my thoughts. What I knew, Margaret was having an affair with someone named David. They'd been planning to steal my money for at least 2 years. She'd already moved hundreds of thousands offshore with help from someone named Thomas. She was waiting for the business sale money to clear before making her move to the Cayman Islands. She'd been researching my life insurance policies. What I needed to find out: who was David? Who was Thomas? What were the offshore account details? What else had she hidden? Was there more money missing? What I needed to do: document everything, protect my assets, find evidence, not let her know I knew. That last part would be the hardest. I'd have to sit across the dinner table from her, smile, discuss our future together, all while knowing she was counting down the days until she could rob me and disappear. I heard her car in the driveway at 4:58. I stood up, checked my reflection in the mirror, and practiced a smile. It looked ghastly. I tried again. Better. The front door opened. Honey, I'm home. I got those ribeyes and the ingredients for your favorite potato salad. I walked downstairs. She was in the kitchen, putting groceries away, humming something cheerful. She looked up as I entered, and her face lit up in a smile that I'd once thought was genuine. There's my successful businessman. Come here, give me a kiss. I did. Her lips felt like plastic against mine. Did you see my email? I asked, keeping my voice level. What email? I forwarded you the bank notification about the deposit. Her eyes widened slightly. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Oh, my phone's been acting up. Let me check. She pulled out her iPhone and made a show of scrolling through emails. Here it is. Oh, Robert. She threw her arms around me. This is really real. We did it. We actually did it. We. She'd had nothing to do with Thompson Industrial Supply, except complaining about the long hours I worked. But sure, we did it. I thought we could celebrate tonight, she said, pulling back and touching my face with a tenderness that now felt like sandpaper. Just the two of us. Open that bottle of wine we've been saving. That sounds perfect. And it did, in a horrible way. Because while she was celebrating the arrival of the money she planned to steal, I was celebrating the fact that I'd caught her before she could do it. I grilled the steaks while she made the potato salad, and we sat on our back deck watching the sun set over the mountains. She talked about the Mediterranean cruise, showed me pictures on her tablet, pointed out the excursions she wanted to take. Greece, Italy, Croatia. I nodded along, making suggestions, while mentally cataloging every lie. We should book soon, she said. Maybe for this fall? September is beautiful in the Mediterranean. Maybe we should wait until the money's fully settled, I said carefully. Make sure all the taxes are sorted out first. Something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance? Robert, don't be such a worrier. That's what Ray's for. We've waited long enough. Don't you want to actually enjoy the fruits of all your hard work? Of course. You're right. Let's look at dates tomorrow. She squeezed my hand across the table. I love you. You know that? I'm so proud of you. 40 years you put into that company. You deserve this. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd met at the University of Alberta in 1982. The girl who'd worn a jean jacket and cowboy boots to our first date. The bride who'd promised to love me in sickness and health. The mother who'd held our daughter after 36 hours of labor. The grandmother who cried when Emma was born. When had it all become a lie? Or had it always been one, and I was just too blind to see? I love you too, I said, and the words tasted like ashes. That night, she fell asleep quickly, her breathing deep and even. I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, planning my next moves. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more evidence. Needed to find David, find Thomas, find the offshore accounts. I waited until her breathing developed the slight whistle that meant she was deep asleep. Then I carefully slid out of bed. Her office door was still closed. I tried the handle gently. Locked. That was new. She'd never locked her office before. I went back to our bedroom and retrieved the small key ring from her purse, moving as silently as I could. She'd always kept spare keys there. Office, safety deposit box, filing cabinet. I found a small brass key that looked right and went back to her office door. It opened soundlessly. I closed it behind me and turned on the small desk lamp instead of the overhead light. Her laptop was closed on the desk. I opened it. Password protected, of course. I tried our anniversary date. Wrong. Sarah's birthday. Wrong. My birthday. Wrong. I thought for a moment, then tried Emma's birthday, our first grandchild. The screen unlocked. My stomach turned. She'd used our granddaughter's birthday to protect her secrets. I had maybe an hour before I needed to worry about her waking up. I started with her emails. The regular account showed exactly what you'd expect. Book club correspondence, real estate client communications, messages with Sarah, newsletters from various stores. But there was a second email account. I found it in her mail app. securemail.com. Address ML Thompson, 2023. The inbox was full of messages from D. Kramer and T. Lawson, David and Thomas, presumably. I pulled out my phone and started photographing everything. Messages detailing the offshore account structures. Transfers through shell companies with names like Nordic Holdings Limited and Meridian Investment Corp. Bank account numbers in the Cayman Islands and Belize. Detailed plans for liquidating assets. There was an entire folder labeled Exit Strategy. I opened it with shaking hands. The folder contained documents outlining Margaret's plan to disappear. Flight itineraries to Grand Cayman via Toronto. Rental agreements for a villa. New identity documents that she'd apparently been working on through some contact Thomas had in the States. Instructions for accessing the offshore accounts once she was outside Canada. Further down, I found her divorce filing drafts. She'd already written them, already had them ready to submit to the courts. The grounds? Irreconcilable differences and my supposed financial control. She'd painted herself as a victim, claiming I'd dominated all financial decisions during our marriage and left her with no independence. It was a masterpiece of fiction. Every financial decision we'd made together. She'd had full access to everything. The joint accounts, the investments, the business finances. I'd trusted her completely. I kept photographing. Messages between Margaret and David that went back 3 years, not 2. Detailed, explicit messages that made me want to throw her laptop through the window. References to when Robert finally kicks it, and discussions about how much the life insurance would pay out on top of everything else. There were messages about me that cut deeper than the financial planning. Margaret mocking my appearance. He's gotten so old and boring. All he talks about is the business and his golf game. David's responses. Soon, baby. Soon you'll be free of him and we'll have the life we deserve. The life they deserved. Built on 40 years of my work, on my name, my reputation, my business. I found references to phone calls on something called a burner phone. Numbers I didn't recognize. I photographed those too. Then I went through her desk drawers. In the bottom one, under a stack of real estate brochures, I found a small flip phone. I turned it on. The call history confirmed what I'd suspected. Daily calls to a number with a Toronto area code, David, and another Ontario number that must be Thomas. I photographed the call logs, then powered it off and put it back exactly where I'd found it. By the time I was done, I had 372 photographs on my phone documenting every aspect of Margaret's betrayal. The affair, the money laundering, the identity fraud, the planned disappearance. Everything. I closed the laptop, turned off the lamp, and locked the office door behind me. Back in our bedroom, I returned the key to her purse and slid back into bed. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. I lay there in the darkness next to the woman who'd been planning my financial destruction for years, and I felt nothing but cold determination. The next morning, I was up first. I made coffee, read the paper, acted normal. When Margaret came down in her bathrobe, I kissed her cheek. "Sleep well?" "Like a baby," she said, pouring coffee. "What's your plan for today?" "I need to go to the bank, deposit the check. Then I thought I'd meet up with the guys for golf if the weather holds." "That sounds lovely. You deserve a relaxing day." She touched my arm. "We both do." I went to the bank, but I didn't just deposit the check. I met with the branch manager, someone I'd known for 20 years through the business. "Karen, I need to set up a new account. Personal. In my name only. And I need to deposit this check into that account, not our joint account." Karen looked at the check, then at me. "Robert, this is a substantial amount. Are you sure you want it in a personal account? Usually, couples prefer joint accounts for these kinds of deposits." "I'm sure." She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "It'll take a few days to set up the new account properly and for the check to clear. But we can get the process started today. One more thing. Can you put a freeze on any large transfers from our joint accounts? Require dual signatures for anything over $10,000? Karen's expression shifted. "Robert, I have to ask. Is everything all right?" "It will be. I just need to protect some assets while I sort out a personal situation." She nodded slowly. "I can't freeze the joint account without both signatures, but I can flag it for unusual activity and require manager approval for large transfers. That would give you notification if anything unusual was attempted." "That works. Thank you, Karen." From the bank, I went to Raymond's office. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up. "Robert," he said, surprise evident on his face. "What's going on?" I pulled out my phone and showed him everything. The voice recording, the photographs, the email exchanges, the offshore accounts, all of it. Raymond's face grew darker with each image. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and let out a low whistle. "This is bad, Robert. This is very bad. For her, I mean. For you, this is a gift." "A gift?" "You have documented evidence of asset concealment, identity fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to defraud. This goes way beyond a simple divorce. We're talking criminal charges here. Multiple felonies." "I don't want to send her to prison," I said, surprising myself. Despite everything, the thought of Margaret in a cell made me feel sick. I just want to protect what's mine and make sure she doesn't get away with this. "Robert, you might not have a choice. Once we file the divorce papers with this evidence, the Crown will likely get involved. Financial fraud at this scale isn't something they ignore. And if this Thomas character has been helping her set up offshore accounts and fake identities, he's looking at serious time too. What about David, the boyfriend? If he's been knowingly participating in the fraud, he's culpable too. But we'd need to identify him first. Do you know his last name?" "Kramer. David Kramer. I think he's in Toronto. Married, apparently." Raymond made notes. "I'll hire a private investigator. Get full details on both men. Document everything about the affair and their involvement in the financial fraud. In the meantime, you can't let Margaret know that you know. Can you do that? Could I? Could I keep living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, pretending everything was normal while building a case against my own wife? How long will it take? 2 weeks, maybe 3. We need to trace all the money, get account records from the offshore banks, identify all the shell companies. It's complex, but with the evidence you've already gathered, it's doable. The investigator can work quickly if we pay for priority service. Do it, whatever it costs." I left Raymond's office feeling like I was in some kind of surreal dream. 3 days ago, I'd been a man celebrating a successful business sale, looking forward to retirement with his wife. Now, I was planning to destroy the woman I'd spent 41 years with. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal. I went golfing with my friends and forced myself to laugh at their jokes. I had dinner with Margaret every night and discussed cruise itineraries and interior design ideas for the renovations she wanted to do. We went to Sarah's house for Sunday dinner and played with the grandkids, and I had to watch Margaret act like a doting grandmother while knowing she'd weaponize our daughter's need for financial help. I memorized Margaret's schedule: real estate showings on Mondays and Wednesdays, book club on Thursdays, grocery shopping on Fridays, and every morning at 11, when she thought I was golfing or running errands, she called David on the burner phone from her office. I knew because I'd installed a small recording device in her office one day when she was at a showing. Nothing fancy, just a voice-activated recorder hidden behind books on her shelf. Every evening, when she was asleep, I'd retrieve the SD card, copy the files, and return it. The recordings were damning. Hours of Margaret and David planning their future, discussing my money, laughing about how clueless I was. "He actually showed me cruise brochures," Margaret said during one call, "as if I'm going anywhere with him. I can barely stand to touch him anymore." "Soon, babe," David replied. "Just a few more weeks. Thomas says the last transfer will be ready by the end of the month. Then you file for divorce, claim your half, and disappear before he can freeze anything." "What about his lawyer? Ray something?" "Old school, slow. By the time he figures out what's happening, you'll be in the Caymans and your half will be protected." They were wrong about Raymond being slow. While they plotted, Raymond's investigator was gathering everything. David Kramer was a real estate developer in Toronto, married to a woman named Patricia with 3 adult children. He had a history of extramarital affairs and a tendency to date women with access to money. Margaret wasn't his first target. Thomas Lawson was a disbarred lawyer who'd been convicted of financial fraud in 2015 and served 18 months. He now made his living setting up offshore structures for wealthy individuals, looking to hide assets from tax authorities or soon-to-be ex-spouses. He specialized in Cayman and Belize accounts. The investigator traced every dollar Margaret had moved, $460,000 from our joint investments, another $200,000 from a business line of credit she'd opened in my name, forging my signature, $300,000 from the sale of some stocks I'd thought we still owned. All told, she'd already stolen nearly $1 million, laundered it through Thomas's shell companies, and moved it offshore. And she was waiting for the $2.8 million from the business sale before making her final move. Raymond scheduled the confrontation for a Saturday afternoon. Sarah was at a soccer tournament with Emma, so she wouldn't be caught in the immediate fallout. I'd asked Raymond if there was a way to keep this quiet, to handle it privately, but he'd shaken his head. With this level of fraud, the police need to be involved. I've already spoken with the Financial Crimes Unit. They want to be present when you confront her. So, on a bright Saturday morning in May, I waited in my own living room with Raymond, 2 police detectives, and a victim services counselor named Maria, who was there in case things got emotional. Margaret was at her book club. She'd be home by 2:30. It was 2:15. "You doing okay?" Maria asked me gently. I didn't know how to answer that. Was I okay? I was about to watch my wife of 41 years get arrested. I was about to blow up my family. My daughter would be devastated. My grandchildren would grow up knowing their grandmother was a criminal. But I was also protecting myself from complete financial ruin. I was stopping Margaret from stealing everything I'd worked for. I was ensuring she faced consequences for years of lying and manipulation. "I'm doing what needs to be done," I said finally. At 2:33, I heard her car in the driveway. My heart started pounding. The detectives stood up, positioning themselves near the door but out of immediate sight. Raymond stood beside me. Margaret came through the door, car keys in hand, calling out cheerfully, "Honey, I'm home! The book club was so good today. We're reading this new mystery about..." She stopped when she saw me sitting in the living room, saw Raymond, saw the detective stepping forward. "Robert, what's going on?" Detective Morrison introduced himself and his partner, Mrs. Thompson. "We need to ask you some questions about your financial activities over the past 3 years." The color drained from her face. "I don't understand. What financial activities?" "Specifically, the movement of approximately $1 million from joint accounts and accounts in your husband's name to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Belize." She looked at me, her eyes wide. "Robert, what is this? What's happening?" I stood up. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. "I know everything, Margaret. I know about David. I know about Thomas. I know about the offshore accounts and the fake identities and your plan to disappear to Grand Cayman with my money. I don't know what you're talking about. David who?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording. Her voice filled the living room, tinny but clear. $2.8 million from the business sale, plus another $1 million in investments and the house, which is worth at least 1.6. We're looking at nearly 6 million Canadian, darling. She went white, then red, then white again. She grabbed for the back of the sofa to steady herself. "You recorded me? You went through my private phone calls? You were planning to rob me blind and disappear." I protected myself. Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Mrs. Thompson, we have warrants for your electronic devices and documentation of the offshore accounts. We'd like you to come to the station to answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet. But we do need you to cooperate with our investigation." Margaret looked at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw genuine emotion on her face. Terror. "Robert, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I got confused. But we've been married 41 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything to me," I said quietly. "But apparently it meant nothing to you." She tried a different tactic, her voice breaking. "Think about Sarah. Think about the grandkids. Do you really want to put me in prison? Destroy our family? You destroyed our family when you decided I was worth more dead than alive." Her face hardened then. The mask dropped completely. "You self-righteous bastard. I gave you the best years of my life. I raised your child. I entertained your boring business clients. I pretended to care about your stupid golf stories. I earned that money. By planning to steal it and disappear, by forging my signature on loans, by laundering money offshore, I did what I had to do to secure my future. You were never going to leave me anything substantial. You'd have pissed it all away on Sarah and those grandkids. There it was. The truth, finally, raw and ugly. Detective Morrison intervened. Mrs. Thompson, we really need to go to the station now. They didn't handcuff her, at least. That was something. She went with them quietly, her book club tote bag still over her shoulder, her face a mask of rage. After they left, I sat down heavily on the sofa. Raymond sat beside me. That went about as well as could be expected, he said. I need to call Sarah. Do you want me to stay? I shook my head. I need to do this alone. After Raymond left, I sat in the silent house for a long time before I could bring myself to pick up the phone. How do you tell your daughter that her mother is a criminal? That everything she believed about her parents' marriage was a lie? I called Sarah's cell. She answered on the third ring, slightly breathless. Hey, Dad. Emma's team just won their quarterfinal. Can I call you back in a bit? Sarah, I need you to come home. Tonight. It's important. Her voice changed immediately. Dad? What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm okay. But I need to talk to you. Face to face. Can you come to the house tonight? Of course. Let me get someone to watch the kids and I'll be there in 2 hours. I spent those 2 hours rehearsing what to say. Nothing sounded right. In the end, when Sarah walked through the door, I just told her everything. Showed her the recordings, the emails, the offshore accounts. All of it, she cried. I held her while she sobbed, this grown woman who was still my little girl. I don't understand, she kept saying. I don't understand how she could do this. Neither do I, sweetheart. What happens now? Your mother will likely be charged with multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. There will be a trial. It's going to be ugly and public. Sarah pulled back and looked at me, her eyes red. And you? Are you okay? Was I? I'd just destroyed my marriage. My wife was probably going to prison. My family was shattered. But I still had my money. I still had my dignity. I still had my daughter. I will be, I said. The legal process took 8 months. Margaret was formally charged with fraud over $5,000, money laundering, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. David Kramer was charged as an accessory. Thomas Lawson, caught trying to flee to Mexico, faced even more serious charges. Margaret's lawyer tried to make a deal, but the Crown wasn't interested. The evidence was too strong. In January, she pleaded guilty to avoid a trial. The judge sentenced her to 6 years in prison and ordered her to repay everything she'd stolen. David Kramer got 2 years. His wife divorced him immediately. Thomas Lawson got 7 years, his second major conviction. Through it all, I focused on rebuilding. I didn't go on the Mediterranean cruise. Instead, I set up a financial literacy program for divorced men over 50, helping them recognize the signs of financial abuse and protect their assets. The foundation, funded by the money Margaret hadn't managed to steal, helped 83 men in its first year. Sarah and I grew closer. She brought the grandkids over every Sunday. We never talked about her mother unless Sarah brought it up, which was rare. Emma and Jacob knew that Grandma had made some bad choices and had to go away for a while. That seemed sufficient for now. I learned to cook for myself, learned to enjoy silence, started taking classes at the university, auditing courses in history and philosophy just for the fun of it, made friends with other divorced men in similar situations, discovered that life at 63 could still hold surprises, even if they weren't the ones I'd planned for. 1 year after Margaret's arrest, Sarah and I sat on my back deck, watching the sunset over the mountains. The same view I'd shared with Margaret the night I found out about her betrayal. "Dad," Sarah said quietly, "are you lonely?" I thought about it. Sometimes. But I'm not alone. I have you. I have the grandkids. I have friends. I have purpose. Mom asks about you, you know, in her letters. I didn't respond to those letters. Couldn't bring myself to. What would I say? She says she's sorry. Says she was confused. that David manipulated her. Do you believe that? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. No, I think she made her choices. But she's still my mother. And you still love her. I understand that. Do you still love her? I looked out at the mountains, brilliant in the fading light. I love the woman I thought she was, but that woman never existed. So no, I don't love the real Margaret. I don't think I even know who she really is. Sarah squeezed my hand. You did the right thing, Dad. I know it was hard, but you did the right thing. I hoped she was right. Most days, I believed she was. On the hard days, when the house felt too empty and quiet, I sometimes wondered if I could have handled things differently, if there had been a path that didn't end in betrayal and prison and a shattered family. But then I'd remember Margaret's voice on that recording, planning my financial destruction, joking about waiting for me to die. And I'd know that the woman I'd thought I married, the partner I'd trusted for 4 decades, had been a fiction. A carefully constructed lie that she'd maintained until she thought it was safe to drop the mask. 3 years after the business sale, I sold our house in Mount Royal. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place in Kensington, close to Sarah and the grandkids. Started a consultancy, helping other small business owners plan their exits and protect their assets. The work was satisfying in a way I hadn't expected. Emma, now 13, asked me one day why I never talked about Grandma. Because it's complicated, sweetheart. Mom says Grandma made bad choices, but Mom also says people can change. Can Grandma change? I looked at my granddaughter, so young and hopeful, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that some people don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. Maybe, I said, people can surprise you, but I never went to visit Margaret in prison, never responded to her letters, never gave her the opportunity to try to manipulate me again. That door was closed, locked, and I'd thrown away the key. Instead, I focused on the future, on Sarah and her family, on the men I was helping through the foundation, on building a life that was honest and real, even if it was lonelier than the lie I'd been living. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I'd tried to work it out, maybe gone to counseling, given Margaret a second chance. I tell them the truth. You can't work things out with someone who sees you as nothing more than an ATM machine. You can't salvage a relationship built on lies and planned betrayal. You can't give a second chance to someone who spent years plotting your financial destruction. What I can do is move forward, rebuild, learn, help others avoid the same trap I fell into. And that's exactly what I did. The business sale money that Margaret tried so hard to steal funded my new life. The Mediterranean cruise I never took with her became a trip to Greece with Sarah and the grandkids. The villa she'd planned to buy with David became a college fund for Emma and Jacob. The future she'd stolen from me, I built back from the ground up, brick by brick. And every day, I wake up in my smaller house in Kensington, make my coffee, and look out at the mountains. I survived betrayal. I protected what was mine. I built something real from the ashes of a marriage that was never what I thought it was. That's enough. That has to be enough. Because at 66 years old, I've learned the most important lesson of my life. Trust is earned, not given. Love requires honesty, not performance. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a lie, even if you've been living it for 41 years. I'm Robert Thompson. I built a successful business from nothing. I raised a good daughter. I'm helping other men avoid the trap I fell into. And I'm finally, after years of living in a carefully constructed fiction, being completely honest with myself about who I am and what I want. That's my story. That's how I survived. And if you're going through something similar, if you're discovering that the person you trusted most has been planning your destruction, know this. You can survive the betrayal. You can rebuild. You can create a life that's real and honest and yours. It won't be easy. It won't be the life you planned, but it will be true. And truth, I've learned, is worth more than any amount of money, even $2.8 million.